What up, though? This is your boy Mike D, host of Wrestling from the 313. And today my guest is he's representing Boston, Massachusetts. He also has his own podcast, the VSW podcast. Is that correct, right?
That is.
All right. VSW. He is Versace Stoner. Welcome to the 313.
Thank you. You know, it's funny, 617 on the 313. Gotta love it. Happy to be here. And you're right, I do have a podcast, VSW podcast, and basically we talk about all the things on the independent wrestling scene in the Northeast and New England area.
That's what's up. So would you say that you're more of an independent fan, or would you do you watch the professionals as well?
You know, when I grew up, obviously growing up, I was caught on by TV wrestling, you know, especially when I grew up, 80s wrestling. Hulk Hogan's there running wild, Macho Man's there, the Madness is running wild. You have all these larger than life characters. So, of course, TV wrestling was my jam. Back then, there wasn't really an independent scene. When I would go, it would be to see people like the Honky Tonk Man or somebody they were bringing back.
Yeah.
And so I watched wrestling, you know, until a little bit into the Ruthless Aggression era, right? Like religiously. And then I started to watch it occasionally. And I, you know, a couple years went by, a couple more years went by, and then, you know, some twist of fates and things got somehow twisted into wrestling again. And I was like, we were talking about something. My friend invited me to a Raw. I started watching TV wrestling again. And then I stepped foot into an independent wrestling event, something close to my house. And I was just amazed by how much of the storylines and how much of the wrestling had evolved in that scene. No longer were they worried about one-ups and who they bringing in. Everybody had their role in place and fan favorites, and people were there to see them. And it just mesmerized me. All the characters, and then being able to be that close, you know, sitting front row is like $10 at some shows compared to the WWE prices. From that point on, 2017, 2018, I became fully invested in probably the indie scene. Now, granted, I still watch WWE. I watch AEW. If I can catch it, New Japan, Ring of Honor, you know, Impact, all those things. But my primary, you know, focus is the independent scene.
Sweet. So, what are some of the top promotions in the indies out in your area?
I would have to say, if you have to name the two top promotions, like starting at the top would have to be Beyond Pro Wrestling. You know, every Thursday night they put on a show, Wrestling Open. It's on IWTV. And you got just, you know, their heritage alone. They've had some of the, you know, top TV stars that are on TV now today. And number two, you know, they're out of Worcester, Mass. The number two and really close to them is Limitless Wrestling. And they're up in Maine.
Okay.
And, you know, they've been just a shining star in the last like 7 or 8 years. Their first champion was MJF, so he was running rampant out there.
Okay.
And they've had others, you know, Christian Casanova, now Carmelo Hayes, he was champion over there.
Okay.
Anthony Green, he went over as August Gray for a little bit in 205. He was champion over there, so they have a really rich champion heritage.
That's what's up. And I was just about to ask you, out of those promotions, some of the were there any like top stars or anything like that? You had mentioned MJF. What was MJF like, you know, starting off in the indies? Did you see a little bit of what he is now? Did you see that back in the indies?
You know something? MJF was the same then than he is now. Like he really was the same. He didn't care about the fans. He snubbed them. He still, you know, had that better than you attitude. And he just took that to a bigger level on a bigger screen. But he always had that mentality.
Yeah, that's what's up. What was Carmelo Hayes like? Because it seemed like Carmelo Hayes is it seemed like the guys in NXT and just WWE period are real high on him. And did he wrestle in another promotion? Was it like MLW or something like that?
He was I don't know if it was MLW, but he was in Evolve, which prior to the pandemic, Evolve was like WWE's kind. They were watching a lot of people there. I went to their last show. I saw Mansoor there. I saw Carmelo Hayes there. I saw a bunch. And then in 2020, they bought them out. So they took a lot of that roster and put them every which way. And some they kept, some they ended up letting go. And he's somebody that's just shining right now. But honestly, on the indie scene, he was very nice person. Always, he'd talk to you, stop and talk to you, hit you up. I did a lot of sponsoring for a lot of these promotions, to get my podcast and name out there. I find sponsoring shows is the best way because I'm hitting a target audience that I like, and that will like my product. And, he was very nice to like follow my podcast page and, doing all these kind of things that, again, it's something that's, notable on the indie scene because you get that kind of closeness. But once they go to WWE, sometimes they're totally different people. And they're like, forget about what I did prior. But that's not always the case. I mean, New England has a rich history. We have one of the top schools, New England Pro Wrestling Academy. Sasha Banks came out of there. Yeah, she still comes back once in a while and will just pop in and help out with like training.
That's what's up.
Which is really cool, to see all these people that have come out of there. And, it's funny. I heard a story because I went to they had an open what do they call it? Like a fantasy camp day. So you could go there and they would show you how to run the ropes, take the bumps, do the stuff off the top, get in and out of the ring, talk to the wrestlers, ask questions. And so we were doing everything. At the end, they're wrapping up and he's telling us stories, and they're telling us about one time, it was before a WWE event and they came in. Triple H came in with these two wrestlers and was like, look, I'm sorry, we need to close your school. We need to practice our match for later. Can we please use the facility? And obviously they were like, yeah, if we can stay and just kind of watch and they just came in and did their thing.
That's what's up. And John Cena is from Massachusetts too, Westbury, right?
John Cena is. Thing about Cena, which is funny though, is his indie scene wasn't out here though. He wrestled on the indie scene out in like the West Coast.
Right. Because that was what was they developmental FCW?
Yeah, Florida Championship Wrestling, and so he went over there from there. But his dad still works the scene, and his dad still like comes and does managing stuff at shows and stuff still to this day.
That's what's up. So like, it's him being from there. Is that him being from Boston? Is that something that Boston fans like really like take pride in? The way how Chicago feel about CM Punk, is that how Boston feel about Cena? I know they feel that about Sasha because when she came back, when she debuted in AEW in Boston, they just went crazy. Is that
and they did. And in my opinion, I don't think Cena. Obviously, it's hard to tell. Cena's a big star. No matter where he goes, he's loved, right? He's broken that barrier. He's even beyond wrestling. He's in movies.
Yeah.
But I feel like he doesn't really get that hometown welcome feel. Yes, he's from, Boston, Maryland, and they book him from there. But again, he didn't wrestle around here coming up, so they didn't feel that love. See, Sasha Banks did wrestle. She wrestled that chaotic wrestling for years under a real name and more. So, fans got to know these guys and girls on a personal level. And so when they got into the major leagues, of course, they're still following them. When they come back, then, they're still fans. They're like, oh, my God, where a lot of people didn't get to see Cena come up. They just saw what they saw on TV. It was like, who's this guy? Oh, he's from Mass? Cool. Unless they knew him personally or from something else.
That's what's up. So you said you have a podcast or whatever. What made you get into podcasting?
So like I said, about 2017, I got into the indie scene. Started hitting shows, started local. Then I just started branching out. I started seeing, like I said, beyond shows. I went to one, and it really opened my eyes. I saw, Chris Statlander there. She was wrestling on it. So Orange Cassidy was on that show. This was right before like AEW was about to pop. They were popping and, just taking on talent. And so I saw a lot of these guys and I'm like, wow, this is so cool being so close to the scene like this, because again, you're not paying AEW prices. You're definitely not paying WWE prices. You're paying something reasonable to go to a show. You're paying something reasonable to shake these guys' hands. You're not paying the $300-400 price tags. and they have time to sit and talk with you. I mean, Orange that day, he had nothing to do in the afternoon. He sat and talked with everybody that was there.
That's what's up.
Um, so I started to go to that. Then I started to even go, under that a little bit again, and started to watch, even more local promotions again, saying, where do these guys start from? Now they made it to this level, and this level is right under TV level, because then Dark started running, so a lot of these guys started going. So then I looked under that, you know, where are these people getting their start? And I'm going to some of these shows, and I'm seeing these are on point. These are magnificent. Why aren't people talking about this?
Yeah.
And I said to my friend, I was like, I want to do something that will get some eyes and ears on this indie scene. Um, and meanwhile, at the same time, I was going to shows, of course, and just recording footage. Cool spots, cool tricks, cool things. And I just upload them to the YouTube page, no problem. And so 2020 came about. I started to have another focus. I wanted to do something with video gaming and wrestling 2K. And then
Okay.
2020 came down, shut everything down.
Yeah.
And, up here, wrestling was dead. There was no more shows. There was nothing. So I'm like, okay, I really now want to get eyes and ears on this scene. And so I started talking about it, and I started putting out like the first episode, just talking about my favorite promotion in the scene. The first show I walked into, NCW, Northeast Championship Wrestling. Fun, family friendly show, affordable, but a lot of people in New England got their start there. It's a great starting promotion. And so I talked about that. And then, I just started talking about more other shows. And then we got something I still think is a blessing. Schools were starting to allow tapings, and we started to get taped products on IWTV and other social media platforms. So we had a weekly show to cover.
Mm.
So I started covering that and previewing that, and reviewing that and recapping it, and started getting to talk to the guys and the girls who were on these shows, because now they had time, they were home. And then I started to, say, hey, let's, I watched other podcasts. I say, okay, what can I do different? What can I change? And one of them was I wanted to start doing interviews with some of these people. So I started inviting guests on, and I started bringing them on. And at this point, I was doing audio only. Um, you know, just we would talk over Facebook phone call. I'd have their picture on the screen. Sometimes it would always be live, and we would just go. And that's evolved now to videoing and talking video to video. Sometimes if I can, I'd like to get a guest in the house. I have a studio, I bring them down and do the interview that way. But one of the things I learned is I like to interview. I like to get to know where these guys and girls came from, because a lot of them have magnificent stories that you would never even think of. Like, I was talking to one guy, and I've seen this guy on the scene for 4 years and knew very little about him. But I did, I talking to him, I learned that he trained under Scott Hall. He feuded with Kenny Omega on the indie scene.
That's what's
Just outrageous things that you would be like, oh my God, I would never know that.
Yeah. And I think with me starting my podcast, my first episode was in my car. I because I always had the idea that I wanted to start a podcast, but it was just like I had actually started on Spotify, and it was called the Too Sweet Podcast. So I did a couple of episodes just trying it out and stuff. And then something just told me to just go on the internet and just put in Too Sweet Podcast. And it was so many podcasts that was called the Too Sweet Podcast. So I was just like, nah, I need to change this or name it something that's going to be original. So, I went on the internet messing with those little generator sites or whatever. And I saw something that said wrestling from I forgot what area code it was. So when I put 313 at the end of it, it started sticking with me. So I was like, I'm going to stick with this. And it's just been fun, man. Like, I'm who knows where this is going to go, but it's just been a fun journey. Like, I've had interviewed independent wrestlers, promoters, social media influencers, other podcasters, and just the whole experiences for me has just been cool. And
And that's the thing, man. It all starts with you have to have a passion and love for it. And you do it for yourself. You do it for fun. Don't try to go into it thinking that you're going to do it for money, that you're going to get paid, that you're going to find sponsors, that all this is going to happen. Because most of the time it doesn't, at least not off the bat, right?
yeah,
You go in because it's fun and you do this because it's entertaining to yourself and because it's something you like to do and you're learning something. If wrestling's your passion, then of course this is a way in. It's a way in without being in.
yeah,
And I say kudos to anybody that starts a podcast, does a podcast, and gets it out there. Because a lot of people want to do podcasts, a lot of people have ideas, and it's that first episode, it just never gets released.
yeah. And that was the thing when I started my podcast on YouTube. I had the Wrestler from the 313. I started it and put it all together in April, but I didn't do my first episode till July because I was just always procrastinating. Like, man, I'm gonna do it, and how I'm gonna do this? Am I gonna do it this way or that way? And I just said, man, I'm gonna get in my car before work, and I'm just gonna talk about wrestling. And from there, I just kept going on with it, and it's just been a fun ride. A lot of good things have happened. Um, I actually had a chance to interview for an online magazine here in Michigan called Voyage Michigan. So it's just little things that's just been happening, and it's just, hey, I'm just enjoying the ride. And I see you doing good with your podcast too on YouTube. You got a lot of views, got a lot of followers, and
And that's what I was gonna say. When I was talking, I was saying, I was simultaneously filming video, and something that took off in 2020 was, the YouTube Shorts program. They, tried to keep up with what TikTok was doing with this short kind of program. Rails were becoming a thing. Facebook had their own videos. So YouTube decided, let's release a shorts program, and anything under a minute that was filmed uprise would be considered a short now.
yeah,
Well, that's how I always filmed. I always filmed like this, and it would be, 20-second spots or something. So all my videos turned into shorts. And
oh
all
wow,
of a sudden, they got released to the public under the shorts feed. Now, social media, if you don't know YouTube, the shorts feed actually, people watch a video, or maybe, you're scrolling a video, you think it's funny, you hit that button that says subscribe, and then you go about your day.
yeah,
Rather than on regular YouTube, you're watching the video, you might hit the subscribe. You got to find the video. On the YouTube Shorts, it just pops right in front of you. Either you like it, you don't like it, you hit it. So
yeah,
all of a sudden, I had a friend at the time. We was, doing this together. We were doing it as well in our car, after work, just sitting there banging out the episodes to speaker. And one day we started to look, and all of a sudden, we had 5,000 followers. 7,000 followers, 8,000 followers. One of the videos, got up to like 1 million views. I'm like, what the is going on here? Like, what's happening?
yeah,
Then all of a sudden, we're like, every day this is growing. And one of the videos hit 10 million. One of the two of the students were wrestling. It was their last show at the, the taping. And we were down there and I filmed it, and it got like 10 million views. And you know, it blew up, and all of a sudden, like I said, the subscribers were rolling in, and all of a sudden I'm looking like we got 20,000, 30,000, 40,000, 50,000. So the goal is going to be obviously 100,000. I'd love to see a plaque with the VSW logo or something, the name on it. But we are doing well. I try not to look at the numbers because to me, if I can get there, that's great. I'm happy, but I do it because I enjoy doing it. I do it to get, those eyes and ears on these people that I'm interviewing and their shows that they're working for, and the respective promoters and promotions. They're always first. I never thought it would get that high up. Like I said, me and my friend in the car talking. And originally we did also do WWE stuff as well because we needed some filler information. We didn't really have the whole indie scene. So we did, the major pay-per-views and things like that. But then, things happened and I ended up going solo, and it was like, well, I could either keep doing it or just, walk away. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to just go full in on it. And I really pushed hard in 22, to really do the best I could do. And in 22 I started, doing things on Facebook, started to get out more on Meta, started to keep pushing on YouTube. And even now, in the last 2 years, I've done a lot of things where I'm collabing with other YouTubers, trying to do cross shows, and really just trying to double up markets, where there might be some room for them to pick up followers and for me to pick up followers. That's basically kind of what I do now, try to collab a lot. And then I run my, I try to get a weekly show, at least one interview a week, sometimes two.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's been more, I got really lucky. I stumbled across a movie director, pro wrestling movie director called named Luke Robert, and he put out a video called Kill City Cup. It's free. It's on YouTube. It has like Brian Cage and Natalia Markova and all these great wrestlers. And we started talking, and he started just feeding me interviews. I mean, I had Natalia on my show. I had, Jimmy Jacobs on the show talking. I had, all these great wrestling personas and characters coming on the show talking, and it really even opened me up even more to doing more. And that happened last year. I kind of had like another re-spark. And you'll find that in podcasts. Sometimes you'll get like a lull where you're just kind of coasting along with episodes, and all of a sudden something will happen, and you'll be inspired again to like bring it to the next level again,
Right. Yeah. That's what's up. Oh, go ahead.
But yeah, I mean, I started off, with the name of VSW because before I had any character or any name, I had VSW as Virtually Stoned Wrestling, because originally I was going to do something with the 2K gaming. I like to commentate, so I was going to do commentate, make a whole roster, have a whole virtual show.
Okay.
I'm a big advocate for medical cannabis. Actually, one of my favorite brands is from Michigan, Spark. Cushy Punch, they out there. They actually just came out here like last year, but they're from your area. But I'm a big advocate for that. So I put the two together, and I was gonna do, like a fun kind of podcast. Not a podcast, but like a show,
Yeah.
And I don't know, somehow it changed down the line. Like I said, when 2020 hit, it was like, okay, I don't want to do this anymore. I wear a lot of designer clothes. People will call me Versace because I have a couple of Versace shirts. I'm a stoner. I'm like, you know what? I'm just throwing it all together. People do it in the hip hop. You got people called Gucci Man, right? I'm just like, I'm doing it. Versace Stoner. I'm going all in. And, and at that point, I also, 2020 was turmoil. People were very erratic online. We had a lot of social injustice and a lot of uproar. We had that the Floyd incident and other incidents across the country.
Yeah.
So I kind of protected myself a little bit and took down all my real info, and everything out there is Versace Stoner. Everything. I totally just let the character just take over.
That's what's up. So I know you said that on your podcast and on your YouTube channel, you do stuff with the 2K games. What type of content do you create with that?
Well, I used to like to do shows like I had one show, it was called like VSW Absurd, and it would just be like, these crazy wild characters just wrestling matches. One time I did matches you've never seen, and it was just great matchups from over the years that we probably never seen. And one of them I did was with actually Alondra Blaze, and I actually shared it off to X Twitter at the time, and she actually saw it, watched it, said this was awesome, and retweeted. I was like, score.
Wow.
So stuff like that. I do also other gaming too. I do Twitch. I got a 5-year-old. He's got me into playing all sorts of games. Everything from I don't know, Poppy's Playtime all the way to like Fortnite. He got me doing gaming. So we're pretty active in gaming all the time, playing new games. And I'll throw out streams out there. Some of the stuff I'll transcribe over to YouTube if I think it's worthy. Otherwise, it's just gone.
That's what's up. So like for 2K, what's your favorite mode? Is it universe mode or is it career mode?
Well, if I was gonna make a show, I would usually do like the universe mode, because I'd make my own roster. You could change your logo. I always loved, my when I first started back into video gaming, it was like 2015, 16, and I got that 2016 2K, and I fell in love with it because it allowed so much customization, and it only grown over the years from that, allowing you to make your own intro video, allowing you to make your own logo, add your logo. You can make basically your own show, and then you just do it, run it with no commentary, run it with no graphics, and you don't even have to play it.
Yeah. Yeah,
Because I don't even need to know who wins. I can just commentate on the fly and be surprised. And so I was doing that, do like a run my own universe, run my own show, and then just let it run through its course.
that's what's up. That's what's up. So I don't know, you know what I'm saying, how big you are on the mode or universe mode or anything. So what do you think of the mode? Like, do you think it needs to get better? Do you think do you like it how it is, or do you think that they could make some major improvements? Because that's like the franchise mode of wrestling games, universe mode. And franchise mode pretty much gotta be like the top mode, well, besides like the what's that, the mod 2K where you play with the little cards and stuff, and then
Yeah,
like
yeah. The creative now it's so different. They got the creative team mode, and then they got like a career mode where you play your own personal person, and then you got
yeah,
the franchise or dynasty mode. And
yeah,
on some of those games, they're real complex. You can start setting ticket prices so you get, more money in so you can get better pickups on the draft and grab better players. I
yeah.
feel like, WWE Universe, it's okay, but it hasn't really evolved super much in the last, many games.
I agree. I totally agree.
There's a lot they could do with it because there's a lot, WWE can do with that in general. There's plenty of booking games out there where you can play as a booker and book matches and pick a venue and see who's in town and this and that. And I wish you could kind of do it like that, and run, a true indie show through the universe. It
Yeah,
doesn't have to be so mainstream or so WWE like.
yeah. I think what they need to do is they need to get the developers from Universe Mode, and they need to talk to the guys that do the GM mode for the franchise mode for NBA 2K, because it's so customized on NBA 2K. I think that I really think on WWE 2K they need to take Universe Mode and the GM mode and just put it together and just add more customizations, like have a draft, you know what I'm saying, have you could change the days of your PLEs, have two shows running in 2 days, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah,
um
I mean, why not? And but I do think NBA gets a little bit more money out of their games because everything else costs so much. If you want
yeah,
to build your ultimate team, it's costing now in the thousands of dollars. If you want to keep wasting on packs, where WWE offers that the season pass, and it
uh,
just gives you guys. We just got what extreme guys, couple ECW guys,
yeah,
but
yeah,
again, the games are almost, if you buy it, I think brand new, it's like $110
yeah,
with everything included. I mean, there is no reason why you can't have those kind of modes, where you can really delve deep into what you want to do. It's not hard to code, because they do it in other games. Like you said, you can copy things, you can kind of play. It is a 2K game, so it should fall with the other 2K series. And I feel like it does fall a little bit behind in some ways, even though they come out, the same every year. I feel like some of their other modes are more interesting. I've been playing the Soccer 2024 game, and they have like a Volta section where you're almost playing street soccer with other people. Then they have make your own team, but then they allow you make your own team with the draft, which is really cool. You can just open random packs and pick your own team and see how far you can go with that. So again, it's like even a lot of things they could do with the creative, make your own and all that with on that end too in WWE 2K.
yeah. And I also would like to see too where they come out with a pack where they have all the old WCW arenas and all the old ECW arenas, so you don't have to use all your creative space to make the old WCW arenas. You know what I'm saying?
I do, because I was doing a match today. I was gonna try to do something, and all I had and all they had rather was just the one night stand arena,
Yeah.
already stock. And I feel like first of all, it's not even the ECW one night stand arena. It's like the WWE version of it. I
Right.
want to see the Philadelphia arena set up. You have the rights and own that. Put it
Yeah.
out there. All those old WCW pay-per-views out there. Give us all that heritage stuff.
Yeah,
Everything they've been acquiring for the network, they could add to this game and really, give us wrestlers that we, never seen in a video game before. I mean, I am glad and grateful they brought people in like George the Animal and other characters that we never got, but it's still, there's still room for more retro wrestling. I'm a big fan of retro wrestling, so I obviously love seeing, more wrestling. I used to be a big fan of like Legends of Wrestling 1 and 2 because it was just all legends.
yeah. I remember that, and then I remember THQ did what was that? Legends of WrestleMania.
Yep.
They had their own Legends game, and that was a pretty decent game, you know. But I wouldn't mind another game like that if they 2K did something like that, just made a game with just straight Legends.
I tell you that I really wish somebody would make another Def Jam fighting game.
Yeah,
We kind
yeah.
of need that.
They need to bring that back in NBA Street.
Yes, I was just gonna say that those two go side to side. I used to have both of them just back to back, and I love the NBA Street game because first of all, the first one that came out was like the first time we got to play Jordan in like 20 years. Like they put him
Yeah,
in the game, and in every other game they always you play the Bulls, but never him.
right. It was his name. They always had a generic version. I think it was his name was like 99 player or
Yeah, and like in
something.
NBA Jam, he just was missing completely.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk a little bit about what's going on in mainstream wrestling. Of course, WWE Cody is the champion now. Um, the Bloodline Roman is taking a little break. Of course, he's probably doing some movies or something like that. What do you think about the Bloodline story right now when Cody being the champion?
And I mean, I'm glad that Cody went in the direction he was going. At first, I thought they were going to go with the other direction. Cody not take his shot and just kind of bow before a legend and I think that would have been really bad for business. It would have just shown the world that anybody that used to be a wrestler and has some pull can just come in and just do what they want.
Yeah,
So I'm glad they went the way with Cody. But my issue is with an underdog champion. And it's not just Cody, it's with any underdog champion. We saw it with Kofi Kingston. We saw it a little bit with Seth Rollins. They have these great great storylines. The fans are behind them 110% while they're riding up there, going for that title. And then once they get it, they snatch it. It's like they fall kind of flat. And they don't know, because they're so used to just always clawing and pulling up. Now they're at the top. It's like, okay, what am I going to do? Who am I going to fight? It's not the 80s anymore where you have these super, heels. Everybody's kind of just like, okay, kind of bad, or kind of, there's no dangerous adversary. There's no Andre the Giant's coming out. So they have to be kind of creative in what they do. Now, he had him fight Logan Paul. It would have been a good fight, except, one title's not on the line. Right off the bat, you know which way that's going.
right, yeah,
It becomes predictable.
yeah. And I think that's kind of how it feels with Cody. Like, yeah, that whole match with him and Logan Paul, it did seem like real predictable. You knew he wasn't going to win. And even if they did make it title for title, I don't think I would have wanted to see Cody with the U.S. title, like both titles. I think right now the U.S. title needs to be like that workhorse title for SmackDown, the way the IC belt is on Raw.
Well, yeah. I mean, they could have had just Logan Paul kind of cheat to win and get caught and disqualified and do kind of something old where the heel would just lose by DQ, so they don't have to lose the belt.
Yeah.
They used to really work that rule in there. If you lose by count out or DQ, that you didn't have to turn the title over. So sometimes wrestlers just walk away, say, "I'm not going to fight anymore. Bye."
Right. So, how you thinking? What do you think about the Bloodline story that's going on right now with Solo and the Tonga twins taking over?
I think it's interesting, and I think it's a good way to keep it going because I do think you're right. I think Roman's either taking a break for whatever reason. He's been running pretty nonstop, and I think he's also is gonna follow in the Rock's lead and do some kind of Hollywood work because he has that persona, he has the body for it, he has everything for it. But the Bloodline was one of the hottest things in WWE. It was probably the best stable in the last who knows how many years. It really drew. So how do you keep that going? You keep bringing in the next generation. You bring in those stars that are still connected. I like that. I think that's fine. Let's keep that story kind of going, because that story shouldn't have to end just because the head of the table is gone.
Yeah. And this story with these guys is like so many twists and turns, because it's like Roman's out right now. Jimmy, you know what I'm saying? He's selling the attack he took from Solo and Tama Tonga. And that actually happened at the SmackDown, and that happened at Little Caesars Arena in Detroit. And I actually went to that too. And when he came out, everybody was just surprised that it was him, because it was reported on the internet for so long that he was coming to WWE. So when he came from under the ring and took the hood off, everybody was surprised. But I think what's going to be interesting is if Jay Uso gets back into this story and he reunites with his brother. Just think about if the Usos get back together with Jay's entrance and they both are doing the whole little thing that he do on the ropes. It's going to be crazy. I think when they get back together, it's going to be a big pop. The
It
Usos and just the original bloodline, period.
it is, and people just kind of gotta give it a chance. You gotta remember, like, right, DX was a hot thing, and then Shawn Michaels got injured. Triple H kind of had to reform, and it ended up being one of the greatest stables after the fact. Better
Yeah,
than him and Shawn Michaels ever did together.
yeah, I agree.
Um, and this is kind of just got to see what they're going to bring, what they're going to drag in. There's a lot of bloodline members. There's people we do know about. There's people probably we don't know about. WWF has a lot of strings to pull and has a lot of weight to pull, so they can bring in great stories when they want to. It's just not always what the fan base might want to look for, but they know what they're doing.
Yeah, I totally agree. Another thing that I would like to see, I would like to see them add a female into the bloodline. And I think the perfect female for the bloodline would be Nia Jax.
Well, yeah, I don't get that. She's right there. She would be that. She's already played the Monster Hill role. She can get in there. She could definitely be part of that. I think, and maybe it will come down the line where she does get into that. Because again, she's part of the bloodline. Why not make that, that, and then you can, now you can feud with, she can feud with female stars, and that kind of draws too, and it draws again bloodline into, other things. Now, she could get a title or whatever,
Yeah,
and now the bloodline has another title with them, and there's a lot they can do. It's very versatile, especially if they bring in a female. So I mean, hopefully they do. Hopefully it grows and it continues to grow even bigger, like I said, than it was. Seeing the Usos reunite, seeing that happen, that would be great, I think, for it. And it'd be great for ratings. Fans love that shit. People like it, I think they're invested still in the bloodline. I don't think that's, a dead topic, a dead subject. I think they were pretty smart on how they kept going with it forward.
yeah, I totally agree. I think if they do add women into the bloodline story, let's say if they do add Naya, I think she should be on the side with Solo and the Tonga twins, and find some way somehow have her feud with Naomi, and have Naomi on the other side of the bloodline with Jimmy, because those two are married. So it's so many twists and turns, and then it's like you said,
You could do a mixed tag match right there, right there.
yeah, and then it's like,
Right there. So
and
it's a
then
lot.
who knows like what other family members they got lined up to come to WWE. So it's gonna be real interesting to see where it goes, the next couple of months.
And that's the thing, as I got older and with WWE, when I was younger, I would watch, all 3 hours of Raw and just be invested in all. Now I kind of just pick and choose which stories. Because unfortunately, there's a lot of wrestling on TV, and not just on WWE. I catch some AEW as well. And then I catch a lot of the IWTV stuff, and that takes a lot of time up because sometimes if I don't catch the show live, I gotta wait for it to come in. It could come in on a Tuesday, and I gotta watch that. And I do like to try to keep up to date with that, especially if I'm interviewing people. I want to know, like, what show they're going to be on next. What show were they on before? What were the results? How did they do?
Yeah.
But I do like that option now, though, in wrestling, that you can kind of just pick and choose which part of each show you even want to watch.
Yeah.
I knew a lot of people that used to tune into Raw just for Firefly Funhouse, nothing else. They just were in
Right.
it for Bray, and then they wouldn't watch any other wrestling.
That's what's up. So speaking of Bray Wyatt, it's been rumored for the last couple of months now that this Wyatt Six faction is supposed to be coming soon. What do you think about that? Do you think that they could continue that Bray Wyatt legacy?
I mean, it's going to depend on a few things. To be honest, it's going to be depending on who's running this legacy.
Yeah,
If we're getting Bo, then yes, I'm all for family running this. If we're getting his, a tag team partner of his, somebody he worked with, again, I'm all for it. It's got to be someone that knows him, that's close to him,
yeah,
that can continue it the way that he would want. I don't want to see it be butchered and his name tarnished, because you know what? At the end of the day, Bray was an inspiration to so many people inside and outside of that ring, fans
yeah.
alike. That he lit their world up. I know,
I agree.
4 and 5 year olds that got birthday gifts by with those phone call messages, and they were just over through the moon. I had my own personal interaction with them on Twitter at one point, and I was marked out like a little kid. Um, he was just one of those characters, and especially with me having such I don't know, a love for horror and a love for different things. He brought that to wrestling. He brought something new that really, really got into a lot of people. I mean, I had people calling me that hadn't watched wrestling since Stone Cold era. The early 2000s, watching Raw again. They're like, "Did you see what happened last night?" And I haven't even heard from these kids since high school. Never mind, watch wrestling. They're like, "Did you see Raw?" I'm like, "Aren't you? Wait, yeah, but oh, you watch wrestling?" So he's like, "No, I just been watching this." I'm like, "Oh wow." I'm glad to see that wrestling's getting that influence again, because I like to see at least be somewhat popular. I don't like to see it dip. Sometimes when we were in school, kids didn't really like it too much. They didn't like us liking it. We'd get stuff
Yeah,
thrown at us, and people would be bullied because that's fake. Well, we know it's fake. We understand that. We understand it's like movies. Movies are fake too, and all that. But it's more than just. You can't just call it fake, first of all, because until you get in that ring, I'm gonna tell you, you're gonna get bruised. You're gonna get injured. I've been in on that side. I got lucky enough. I worked with a fellow wrestler. We started a small little promotion. I got to do a few matches. The kid kind of trained. One of the trainers trained me a bit on the fly. And there's nothing forgiven inside that ring. The ropes hurt. They're not pieces of string. They're hard cables. The ground isn't no trampoline. It's a hard mat.
yeah,
The outside, forget about it. That's the ground. The turnbuckles, they're not, no, easy thing to climb. You have to have balance. Everything is not what it seems. So you got to have that respect, and for that.
definitely. Yeah, I like nowadays. I laugh when people always try to say that like wrestling is fake. I'm like, okay, you go in that ring and try to run it for 5 minutes. You probably wouldn't even survive. You know what I'm saying? And
And
I've never been in, but just like watching Tough Enough and just watching little documentaries where people are training to be wrestlers. When they take that first bump, they like, whoa, like
I mean, I'll be honest. When I was, I got out of high school, I was all in it. ECW was popping off. Everybody was getting into it. Backyard was a big thing. I wanted to be a pro wrestler. I went down to the Killer Kowalski School of Pro Wrestling at the time. I walk in there, my little 5'8", 140-pound self, telling the guy I want to sign up. He's like, "Look, I'm sorry to tell you this. You're not going to be a wrestler. You're not the right size. You're not what we need for this. Have a good day. I'm sorry." And I just walked down. I'm like, "Okay, well, fuck." Um, sorry.
oh, you
But
good, you good.
I was just like, damn. And I took me a little bit more while to find my groove, but I got into amateur boxing, something that was a little bit more weight class. And the training for boxing and the training for pro wrestling are very similar. You're training hours and hours and hours for 15 minutes or whatever minutes. You gasp, you can go in there and then you can do whatever, but you'll be gassed in the first minute if you're not cardio ready, if you're not able to do anything. Um, you got to be trained, like I said, the cardio and all that. And then you got to know what you're doing inside the ring. You got to know how to run the ropes. You got to know how to do each and every move correctly and take each and every move correctly. One slip up and it's an injury. And you can ask any pro wrestler, they'll tell you it's not a matter of like if, it's a matter of when. Because even the best wrestlers, they're gonna get injured. We've seen TV wrestlers get injured. These people are beyond professional and do the most amount of training that any wrestler in the world can do, and they still get injured.
Yeah, yeah. And as much as I love wrestling, if I ever had an opportunity to, if somebody asked me if I want to get in the ring or be like a part of a match or something, nope. I don't want to get body slammed, and that's just for respect for them. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to get dropped on my head, and just being somebody that, I'd rather just be a fan than just watch the professionals do it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, definitely. The role I had was just kind of managerial. I came out and then I ended up getting into a scuffle, so we ended up fighting in the ring like 5-10 minutes. But it was very like a brawl. It was more like we're throwing plunges, I'm selling kicks, I'm getting on the ground, getting kicked. I too don't like or wouldn't want, because I don't know how to be dropped properly on my head or to take a pile driver, to take a suplex. I don't have the athleticism to bounce up like that. I'm a little bit older and I'm not in wrestling shape. I mean, if I was, maybe I would think about it, but it would take time to get even into that. I don't think at this point in my life I have enough time in the day to dedicate to the training that's necessary to put into pro wrestling as a pro wrestler. Maybe another, like I said, maybe mandatory, maybe a referee, perhaps, possibly, but as a performer, I couldn't give the time. I just don't have it. And it's a deep dedication in between the regular gym and your wrestling gym on what you're going to do. I talk to these guys all the time, and it's like, that's your schedule. And then you got your regular job, because most people aren't doing wrestling as full time. It's not feasible. And then Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or sometimes Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you're wrestling. Yeah. So you're balancing life at an incredible speed and rate. It's wild.
Yeah, that's what's up. So I know we had talked a little bit about the the bloodline and Cody on SmackDown. Any storylines that interest you on Raw?
To be honest, I haven't caught Raw on Mondays in a minute. One of my friends has me on his podcast show on Monday nights, and I've been kind of doing that. And I'm like, I keep meaning to watch it on Tuesdays, and then something else happens. I do know, like I said, I kind of bounce around and watch different things. The Bloodline, though, is probably my main focus in wrestling, just because I was a huge fan of what Roman had done and where he had brought in that championship, and the amount of buzz that the people were talking about him. He almost became that, that Hogan character that we had back in the 80s, or the Bret Hart in the 90s. He became this icon. People were like the Bloodline. Other people outside of wrestling knew Roman Reigns.
Yeah.
And they knew he was just, he was just champion. He was just, God. And he held that belt for so long. And so I really got invested in almost just that, even though I didn't have the time to watch a lot of the other stuff. And unfortunately with WWE, for me, I'm watching a lot of stuff after the fact, or, I hear from a friend, or I just end up watching a clip. Unless I can, get the time. I try to watch the major pay-per-views. I'll make time. I'll sit with bring the family. I'll be like, we're watching wrestling tonight. You can sit in or not. My kid's good. Sometimes my wife will give me a little trouble, and it's like, no. I watch all your shows. I let you watch your shows. Like, we can watch one pay-per-view. It's not going to kill you. She's an indie fan, though. I will give her that. She'll go to a show. She has this trouble focusing like on the TV, and I think part of it now is because there's a lot of out of ring stuff in between matches. Where before it used to just be kind of like match, or match interview. Now it's like match, commercial, movie, maybe a segment, then a match, and it's like she just hops on the phone in between. She just can't get back into it.
Yeah.
But she'll give it a go. We are a wrestling family, though. Even my dad, he loves wrestling. Some of my earliest memories was, my parents taking me to shows. I went to I went to my first show was it had to be I think maybe 91. They were gearing up for the SummerSlam where Hogan and Warrior faced Sergeant Slaughter and his crew.
Mm.
The match made in hell. And they were practicing that. So they actually had, Hogan come out versus Slaughter, which was freaking amazing. I'm watching that. I'm seeing the Undertaker in his earliest days, he's dragging away a guy in a body bag. I'm like,
Yeah,
this is awesome. You got people like Jake the Snake coming out with a snake. It was amazing. It was just everything I wanted and more out of it going to that first show. And then I was just like kind of hooked. I went to that Survivor Series that came to Boston in '93. I was like fourth row, and it was just amazing seeing people like Yokozuna. I mean, talk about the bloodline. I mean, he started it basically.
yeah,
Seeing someone like him work, the front. I'm a big fan of the heels. If you didn't know, I didn't say. I really like the bad guys of wrestling. I
yeah.
always have. I was a big Shawn Michaels fan when he was, going against Brett. I was, even a Michaels fan when he went against Austin.
Oh
A lot
yeah,
of the times I like the bad guys to win. They're just more fun.
yeah. I totally agree. Man, I've been watching wrestling since I was between the age of 3 and 5 years old, and that started around the time of like the early WrestleManias. You know what I'm saying? And I just been hooked on this since then. You know what I'm saying? And I'm 42, about to be 43 this year in a couple of months, and I've always been connected to it. And
Yeah, man. I'm 41. I mean, my earliest wrestling memory, if I have to think about it, was Hulk Hogan fighting King Kong Bundy in a steel cage. Like, I
yeah,
remember seeing that on TV, them two going, holy shit, this is wild.
yeah,
It's just something that's been embedded. And if it wasn't with the TV, then the figures came into play. I started collecting wrestling toys, and video games came out. Nintendo, Game Boy, and
yeah,
so on from that, and the magazines. That kept me into it.
yeah,
And wrestling, trading cards, everything. There was something, everything at that point, kind of like there is now, where it was just everywhere. There was, if you wanted a wrestling, pillow, you could get it. You could get a sleeping bag. You could get whatever you wanted. WWF, they had it all.
yeah,
And that's kind of like how it is today. If you go on their website, you can get everything. Except back then it was a catalog, and the
yeah.
prices were a hell of a lot cheaper. I wish I had today's money back then. I would have been buying them autographs and everything up. I would have been like, whoop.
Right. And then remember
Oh,
back in the day, they had the Hulk Hogan workout set. You remember that? The weight set with the
yeah.
jump rope and the little things, the little grippers or whatever. And
Oh
I
yeah.
just, oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say no. I mean, I remember that like it's almost like it was yesterday. I mean, that was just like I said, like so these memories are embedded in me for wrestling. I know a lot's happened since that era, but it's like that's what I fall back into.
Yeah. And then it's just like, you know, I think I had a period where I think when WWE just still had like a bunch of cartoon characters, and it really wasn't. I think it got to a point where it wasn't interesting to me no more. So when my family at first started, when we finally got cable, started watching WCW. So I'm like, okay, because I would see WCW periodically on our local stations, but I think they came on late at night because WWF was on in the morning, afternoon, evening. They controlled everything when it came to like local television. So like I know that WCW would come on late at night, but then when we got cable, we got TBS. TBS, that's all you saw was WCW. So that's how I started getting up on Sting, Steve Austin, I'm Paul Heyman when he was Paulie Dangerously with the cell phone, Medusa. Like it was a lot of guys that I was just not up on that I got up on, and even some of the guys that were in WCW that went to WWE, left WWE and went back to WCW, like Ric Flair, Arn Anderson, Ricky
Yep.
Steamboat, Dusty Rhodes. Like Dustin Rhodes was in WCW. So
He
it's
had a
just a
good
lot.
run. Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, similar to you, being in the Northeast, we didn't really have access to the Southern channels, and
Yeah,
things at the beginning were very still territorial, and then still everything wasn't, syndicated. We eventually got a black box, which allowed me to watch the pay-per-views.
Yeah.
But for a while, WWE really didn't have a weekly. We had, the prime time and this and that, but we didn't
Yeah.
have Raw until 93-ish. And it was an hour-long show, Jobber versus Wrestler, Jobber versus Wrestler, then Wrestler versus Wrestler.
Yeah.
It was very simple formula. And it worked. And, they started to bring in these, like you said, cartoonish characters. And at first, it really did work for them. I know a lot of people give WrestleMania 9 a lot of shit, but, being a kid then, I actually was kind of into it. I enjoyed it. I was into that whole Vegas feel. But then it kind of started to get a little bit different. WWE. It kept with the cartoonish, but it started to get into almost of a PG era. By 94 and 95, you had goofy stuff going on like Undertaker versus Undertaker.
Right. Yeah.
And they started to make it really kid orientated. And by this time, we're all getting a little bit older. And I think WWE realized this, and I think they realized that their key demo that they grabbed in the 80s and early 90s are now at this right age. And so they just unleashed the attitude ever. And it's just like, bam, all of a sudden wrestling's different. You're going to a live show, my dad brought me to a live show. 3 out of the 7 people around me are flashing. It's a whole different scene. Titties are flying, people are, it's no longer kids. It's like young adults. People are partying. It was wild. I went to that Raw where Mick Foley won the title. It was a dark show, dark on Raw. They had the double header. People acting wild up in there. It was totally different than what it was like in 93, 94, and 96. It was like, bam. This is like, boxing, UFC. This is, the next, thing. And you had all this, sexual shit going on that was hitting the right market at the right time because all these kids that growing up was at that age.
Yeah.
And I think they stuck with it until it almost pretty much fell flat again at that PG era. And then they were like, fuck. All that went away. And yes, ruthless aggression, it went away too, but it still had an edge to it. Then all of a sudden, wrestling like lost its edge.
Yeah.
And then the indies and the other promotions too started to shine though, because then you had like, the Bullet Club running wild and all this other stuff on the scene going great, and Young Bucks hitting the scene and doing their thing before they were making waves everywhere at one point. So you had that kind of running. So then WWE, re-strategized once again. It's like, yo, this audience is still into this. Let's, let's keep our, kid friendly, but let's up the edge a little bit more. Let's add a little bit more, adultness to it. And they did.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely think I think that the golden era in the 80s with Hulk Hogan, it started professional wrestling and it helped it grow. But the Attitude Era and the Monday Night Wars took wrestling to a whole nother level that it wouldn't be where it is now for me if it wasn't for the Monday Night Wars or the Attitude Era. Because
No, it would have died in that cartoonish kind of era. And granted, WCW, was a better product, in those 95, 96, 97 years, they started to, I was always kind of, like I said, kind of like you, I could catch WCW when I could. And I was a big fan of their Halloween Havoc. I always loved that show. It was something different. They spun the wheels. A big fan of Vader. I really liked his character. They had some characters that WWE just didn't have. And there was something else about WCW I always noticed, because I would rent the tapes from the tape store. They would have Starcades and stuff. So I'd rent those to watch them at home. And I noticed this, the wrestling technique was different. There was more wrestling, less talk, less showmanship, but more physicality, more ring maneuvers, more things, different styles. So again, I started to watch a lot of that too. WCW became more relevant. You did see that whole Sting, oh my God, he went dark. You started to see, your favorite WWF guys go into WCW. Hogan leaving was big. I watched WCW to see what Hogan was doing over there.
Yeah.
Macho Man went over there. Everybody was going over there. Like you said, people came back and forth. Flair came in for that, WrestleMania. He showed off his shiny belt. He fought Savage, and he went back.
Mm-hmm.
People were doing all different things, but WCW started grabbing these names, and they were starting to make the superior product. And they started to pretty much kicked off that war because their product became so superior that it was like taking numbers away literally from WWE. Fans were actually like leaving, going and watching that. And that's when they're like, we gotta, unload everything we got.
Yeah, yeah.
And they really started to change direction. They brought people that would be relevant into the times. They brought in, everybody's biggest fantasy, beating the piss out of your boss. And they put it on live TV.
Yeah.
And it was the hottest thing going. What is Stone Cold going to do to Vince McMahon this week?
Yup. that was like it was two big questions when Mondays came along. Like you said, what was Stone Cold Steve Austin gonna do to Vince? And who was going to join the NWO? Because it seemed like every week somebody was joining the NWO and WC.
Yeah,
that was
the coolest thing though, because everybody in the everybody around me, wrestling became so mainstream that everybody was throwing the NWO sign up. People are going around saying "suck it" in the streets. Like school time was wild. We'd go to school on a Tuesday, and everybody's all wound up from the night before.
Yeah.
It was like a battle royal that morning.
Yeah.
And everybody's talking about it, and it was. People wanted to know who's doing, who's joining this. And NWO was one of those factions that are still relevant today. People are still, I still got my belt right here. I love that championship title.
You know what? I got my
whole thing, right? It represents a whole, generation of wrestling to me. Seeing Hogan turn, that was huge. I always, growing up, I liked him because, he was larger than life. And then I became a fan of the heels. Yeah. And when he turned heel, I was like, hell yeah, this is great. And him teaming up with, Scott Hall and Kevin Nash, they were just the perfect trio at the time over there. Yeah. And getting other names involved. And then they started bringing celebs in there. You had the basketball player there,
Dennis Rodman.
Yeah, and that was so cool at the time because now you're bringing in again athletes, pop culture icons, people, and it's like, okay, cool, wrestling's becoming larger than life again.
Yeah, that was definitely a good time. And then they had the whole DDP and Karl Malone against Hogan and Dennis Rodman, and then they had Jay Leno and DDP against Hogan and Bischoff. Like, yeah, they were definitely trying, especially when WWE was bringing in guys like Mike Tyson. You know what I'm saying?
And that's the thing. WWE's always been known for bringing in people. WrestleMania 1, they brought in Muhammad Ali. They're bringing in people, right? They brought in somebody in WrestleMania 10 there. They brought in, football players in WrestleMania 2.
Yeah.
They were always bringing in stars, but WCW for a while was keeping right up with them. Like, you want to bring somebody in? Cool, we'll bring somebody in. The only thing I think where WCW screwed up is they threw the title on one of the people they brought in. They shouldn't have put it on David Arquette.
Yeah.
I mean, I get a lot of people don't like Logan Paul either, and they say the title shouldn't be on him right now. But let me tell you something. At the end of the day, Logan Paul is a good wrestler. He's out there performing like the rest of the guys. David Arquette wasn't such a hot wrestler.
Yeah. And Bad Bunny is another guy that's another celebrity that can wrestle too. If they put a belt on him, I wouldn't even be mad.
No, I'm surprised they didn't because he's another one. He came right out with, bam. And, I don't know if he trained before, but whatever he did it the right way. He dedicated because he did his spots perfectly. And, they have the phizicality to do it. And you can't knock that. Granted, they're coming in with another fan base already because they're known outside. There's a lot of people there's probably more people that knew Bad Bunny than some of the wrestlers on the roster. He's very, very popular person across the world. There's people that don't watch wrestling, but definitely listen to reggaeton or listen to his music.
Yeah.
So you bring those people in, and it might ruffle the locker room a little. You got these large than stars, life stars in here, but at the same point, it brings all these eyes on wrestling. Look what, and I hate to say it, look what Taylor Swift did to the NFL.
You're right. You're right. You're right. Because she probably got all those little Swifties or whatever she called her fans watching Kansas City games just to see if they're gonna show her in the skybox rooting on for Travis Kelce. So
They watching it just because that's her team to root for. They're like, oh, well, that's her team. Let's be cool. Let's vote for her too.
yep.
And that's the thing, and that's how social media works. That's how people become influencers. That's how people become celebrities. It's just people follow along what they see, um, and they can move numbers. And WWE knows that they have the best YouTube channel in the world. I don't think they don't know what they're doing. You hear all these things online. That's why I don't hang out too much online, because a lot of people are very negative.
Yeah.
And they don't understand. They're a multi-billion-dollar company. Just because they're not appeasing, you and your 10 friends, they're making money every day, more than we can ever see.
Man, it seems like they're breaking a record almost every day with one of their shows or events or whatever.
And even if they stop running anything new today, they can still make more money off of their whatever they have in their heritage line than most of the promotions can still make. It has a rich culture.
Yeah.
You could be a WWE fan and go to their network and just watch old pay-per-views and never watch nothing past 1995 and just be like, you know what, satisfied. But there's people that watch the whole line. There's people that just watch new stuff. They don't like any of the old stuff. They think it's all cringy. There's people that don't like the Attitude at all. People that only go on that network now just to watch ECW.
That's true.
There was a lot of fans of ECW. They had their own fan base, and WWE buying them. That's the one thing I always kind of disagreed with. I get it. WWE wanted to be the dominating factor, right? They wanted to buy everything out. Cool. Buy it out. Don't tell anybody. Let everything run independently. Let the war keep going. It doesn't matter. You're winning on both sides. And leave ECW independently. It was a cash cow.
Yeah.
People were flocking to Philadelphia. You could clean it up a little bit, make it a little bit more professional, add a little money to it, make sure nobody gets stabbed or killed, but you didn't have to tear it down and turn it into, whatever they did on Sci-Fi. That was just a joke, and a disgusting joke at that. And again, I was sad to see WCW close. I think they could have let that war keep sizzling and then maybe had a really good, WCW versus WWE, where nobody would have saw it coming because nobody knew that it was all one organization.
Yeah.
There's so much they could have done with that, and I feel like that whole invasion era attitude or whatever they did with the invasion just got botched.
Yeah. I think with the invasion, I think that it didn't work because a lot of the top stars in WCW were still sitting out because they were getting that money from Time Warner. So they were waiting for that contract to run out, and they like, okay, after we, stop getting this free money, then we'll talk to WWE about coming and wrestling and stuff like that. But yeah,
and that's the thing. He could have utilized that. He could have paid their contracts to keep wrestling it for Time Warner. They could have kept WCW going, kept that war going another year. Let's say, let their contracts all go out, then let them come over and invade. It would have worked. You might have gotten people like Sting. You might have gotten people. Instead, they got who they got, and they watched how the people got treated, and a lot of them were like, nah, I'm good. I'm not going over there.
Yeah. But even then, I think now, I still think that they could revive WCW. You got the WWE Network. You know what I'm saying? Nothing really comes on the WWE Network but PLEs. You still have your casual fans that watch old pay-per-views or old shows or some of the documentaries, but the way NXT was when the WWE Network first started, I think they could do that again with reviving WCW. At one time, when during the pandemic and stuff, when they were making all those cuts, they released so many wrestlers. All those wrestlers, they released over 100 wrestlers altogether through those 3 years. You could have started another brand and just put that on Peacock, and I don't know. And I totally.
Not for nothing. Even people like Cody Rhodes could be WCW champion. That would work fine. There's a lot of wrestlers that could be over there that have that style. And I think if they had done that, maybe some of those AEW guys would have went over there too.
That's true.
WCW is still a very relevant thing in the wrestling world, at least amongst, fans that were there. A lot of wrestlers, transpired from that. When they, the people that did come to WWE and made an impact, they made an impact. I mean, Rey Mysterio changed the way wrestling is. Now, look at Rey Mysterio. Have I been, 21 now and, 18 now and walked into the wrestling school, they'd take me right away because that's a thing now. You can be whatever size and height and whatever in pro wrestle. That changed, and that was from WCW's cruiserweight division. Had nothing to do with WWE. Had to do with WCW and their cruiserweight division. People like, him. People like Chris Benoit. That he changed the way wrestlers were because the size, it showed that, you could do this kind of style. That wasn't there before. Everything was about the big man.
Yeah. But even if you look back at ECW with Spike Dudley, you know what I'm saying? And he was probably my size. I'm like 5'5", probably like 150 pounds soaking wet. And he was out there, you know what I'm saying, getting thrown all over the place by you know what I'm saying, guys bigger than him. But he still got up and he performed.
And, you still see his heritage there. Even in my area, he opened a school. He was teaching in one of my schools nearby here. And there's a lot of students out of there. Anthony Green got trained out of Spike Dudley School. Teddy Goods trained out of Spike Dudley School. And if you want to really check it out, check out IWTV. Check out anything with Little Mean Kathleen. If you watch Little Mean Kathleen, she has a lot of Spike's mannerisms. And it's wild to see because it's just like, oh my God, Spike Dudley reincarnated. And she's small. And she'll do these great intergender matches and she'll fight whoever and she does not care. It's great. And that's how it was. And again, that is something that they did differently. WWE wasn't doing it at the time. They weren't into, mid-sized wrestlers. It wasn't their thing. They wanted these big dudes. And then finally that changed when they had to merge. You did get all these WCW and ECW guys over there. And the wrestling kind of changed a little bit. And that changed the landscape of how the wrestling is. Because now there is wrestlers all different sizes.
Yeah, definitely. So real quick before we wrap things up, for anybody that's out there that wants to start a podcast or that just want to get started, and really, don't just kind of nervous or whatever, what advice would you give them as far as, starting a podcast and just, going, getting things going?
I mean, first things first, keep it simple, right? Think your topic, think of something, making sure it's a passion. Make sure it's something you can talk about, first of all, for however long you want to talk about. Making sure it's something you can keep talking about every week, however often you're going to do it. And, pick a simple, it's your first podcast. Pick a very, very simple interface to use, something easy. It might be Zoom, it might be whatever it is, just something you can hit play or hit record and it records you. And then worry about the editing, worry about all that later. Just get that first episode out there. See how it looks. It might not do well. It might do great. That does not matter. The first episode doesn't matter. The point is you got it out there and you got to get it out there. Without getting it out there, nobody can listen to it. And that's just it. You got to just keep getting it out there. And the more you do it, the more comfortable you'll be doing it. And the more you can add to it. It's not a one-day thing. It's going to be a progress. You're going to do it this way. And then you're going to be like, wow, I can add this. I'm going to put in this intro. I'm going to add an intro, a song. I'm going to do all these things. And then it becomes an involved product. Remember, we're talking wrestling. Monday Night Raw, when it first started, was just an hour little show.
Yeah.
Now it's, it's almost its own pay-per-view every Monday night, basically. So everything takes time to evolve. Just give yourself the chance to let it do so.
That's what's up. Real quick, NBA Finals. I know you're a Boston fan. What's your prediction? Who's winning? How far you think the series is gonna go?
I think Boston's gonna win, but I think it's going the whole distance. I think it's going right to the end of it.
Okay.
I think they're gonna play it all the way through.
You think Tatum and Jalen Brown, because people been saying that they've been kind of criticizing them for coming up short the past couple of years or whatever. You think they can get it done?
I think so. I think this will be the year if they're gonna do it. This will be the year to do it. They have it all the right momentum. Um, and they've been very impressive. I can't say they haven't been. A lot of their games have been good. Now they're going against a very good team as well, though. So that's why I'm saying I think it's going to be a back and forth fight. I think it's going to be a very close battle. I do think if Boston just stays, and the injuries are minimal and nobody gets hurt, I think they can pull it off. They have that momentum to do it.
That's what's up. So real quick, I know Boston is in that Massachusetts, in that Hartford, or that Connecticut area. Um, WNBA fan, Connecticut Sun fan.
Haven't watched much of it, to be honest.
Okay, all right. I'll just ask it because they starting the season off 9-0, and they like the best team in the league. I just trying to talk about something else other than Caitlin Clark. That everybody just been going crazy about. What's been going on with her, man. She a rookie. Leave her alone, man. For real. That's
Well,
how I feel.
and that's the thing, man. There's always gonna be haters on there, and that's the world we live in, man. The social media world, where everybody's a hater, and even if they're not a hater, they're a hater because you know what? They've learned that hating sells online. It draws views. If you hate, either you joining in and other people are gonna hate with it, or you're gonna get criticized for hating it. Either which way is drawing in all these comments, and the view count's going up and up and up, and all of a sudden the account's going up and up and up, and all these notifications. It's just a big sham draw. Negativity sells. I choose not to let it sell that way. I choose to talk positive shit. Right? There's a lot of bad stuff that happens in wrestling. I seen a clip last night. Somebody sent me a clip of a show in Pennsylvania. This was absolutely disgusting. A tag team match on the indie scene. They're wrestling. Guy gets knocked out cold. The opponent doesn't care and keeps working the match. He goes for a pin. He lifts the opponent up. He throws him in a suplex. This dude's out cold, dead weight. He keeps tossing him around like a rag doll. All of a sudden, the commentators are like, something's wrong here. Like the whole thing was just disgustingly wrong. Luckily, nobody's dead. But there's things like that happen all the time in wrestling. I'll just choose not to talk about. Those are the things I stay away from because those are things that the casual fan will look at and be like, that's the indie scene for you. That's how it is. No one's trained. Everybody's a backtard, and it's not the case. So I try not to spotlight the negative and the bad stuff in anything because there's so much good in there. Don't let the bad stuff ruin it. It can easily be cut out,
Yeah, definitely feel you. Well, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up, Versace. I appreciate you coming through the 313 and, telling your story. Is it anything you want to, push? Any shout outs you want to give?
Sure, definitely. You can always check me out at youtube.com/VSW podcast. Like I said, I talk a lot with the independent stars of the Northeast region and with a lot of the promotions, covering things all the way from like Maine to Jersey. A lot of great guests. We have a lot of fun on there. We do some gaming. My kid does some other videos. We do music. Big hip hop fan. We do some remixes, do some fun stuff. Always fun time on the channel. So if you want, check it out. You hit that sub button. We always like to do, like I said, fun things. We do giveaways and other cool things. But yeah, you can find me there. And thank you again for having me on as a guest. It's always good. I never really sit in this seat. I'm always sitting on the other side asking the questions. It's like sometimes I like people to know why I do this or why I did it. Because it's not, to make millions of dollars and become rich and famous, because I really had a purpose, to get eyes and ears on that indie scene. And it has reached out, sometimes it even goes beyond New England. I've talked to people, all the way down like West Virginia, Texas, California, everywhere. It's been great, meeting people. But thank you again. I'm glad to be on your show. And, if you ever need anything, let me know. Best of luck with your podcast. I love seeing it up there. Something definitely I'm going to be listening to in my rotation.
I appreciate it. And the same here, definitely trying to get up there where you at. You got the views, you got the subscribers, and just putting in the work. And I appreciate you, coming on the show and thank you. And anytime, you know, if you want to come back or if you need a guest, just let me know. And you
Yeah,
know,
you can
I'm
even come on my show and promote your show on mine.
cool, sweet, sweet.
I always like to do that too. Reciprocate a little bit. Let people, listen to let my audience at you. I love sharing that kind of stuff. And that's what it's about. I'm a very big believer in, this ain't a Monday Night War between podcasts. We don't, we can have multiple fans can listen to multiple shows,
Yeah,
and collabs make things beautiful. But yeah, anytime. Thank you again.
no problem, no problem. Well, real quick before I get up out of here, want to give a couple shout outs. Want to give a shout out to Crander Q from Friends in the Square Circle, JD from Mayhem Media, Joe Monroe, um, who's going to be on a future episode of Wrestling from the 313. And, just make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. Check me out on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter/X, and just like, follow, and get down with the 313. Uh, my guest, Versace Stoner, once again, thank you. I am your boy, Mike D. Wrestling from the 313. We are out. Peace.